Imagine you're a 19-year-old. No university degree. No formal training in mathematics. You're sitting at home in southwest England, and you just solved a problem that stumped professional mathematicians for nearly 60 years. You didn't do it alone. You had ChatGPT. And here's the part that really got people talking. It wasn't just that the AI solved the problem. It was how it solved it, using a strategy that no human researcher had ever thought to try. When experts saw the solution, they didn't know what to make of it. Mathematics is one of the oldest human endeavors on Earth. For thousands of years, since Euclid, since Archimedes, it has been purely human territory. A discipline built on logic, creativity, and deep intuition. The kind of thinking that machines were never supposed to touch. That assumption is now being tested in ways most people haven't noticed yet. In this video, we're going to walk through exactly what's happening at the intersection of artificial intelligence and mathematics. Not the hype, not the headlines, but the actual substance. What AI can do right now. What it still can't. Why some of the world's top mathematicians are genuinely excited, and why others are sounding the alarm. Because whether you love math or haven't thought about it since high school, what's unfolding here matters. It's going to affect how science is done, how education works, and how we think about the line between human intelligence and machine intelligence. Let's start with that story. Paul Erdos was one of the most extraordinary mathematicians of the 20th century. He had no permanent home. He traveled the world with a single suitcase, showing up at colleagues' doors and working through problems together. He published more papers than almost anyone in history. He also had a habit, a slightly obsessive one, of collecting unsolved problems, puzzles that fascinated him, questions he couldn't quite crack. By the end of his life in 1996, he had assembled more than 1,000 of them. Some came with small cash prizes. Some had been open for decades. Erdos problem number 1196 was posed in 1966. 60 years passed. Nobody cracked it. Then Liam Price came along. Price is young, self-taught, and passionate about mathematics. But he didn't approach this problem the way a trained researcher would. He sat down with ChatGPT, worked through the problem iteratively, fed solutions back into the system, asked it to find its own errors, and kept pushing until something clicked. And it did. But here's where things get interesting. The solution wasn't just correct, it was surprising. The problem involves something called primitive sets, collections of whole numbers where no number evenly divides any other. Think of prime numbers. No prime divides another prime, so they form a primitive set. Mathematicians who'd previously tried to crack this problem almost always reached for a particular tool set, the language of probability theory. That was the natural way in, the intuitive starting point everyone gravitated toward. ChatGPT didn't do that. It stayed in the original language of the problem, pure number theory. It found the same underlying relationship, but from a completely different direction. Stanford mathematician Jared Duker-Lichtman compared it to chess. Specifically, to an AI discovering an opening that generations of human players had never explored, not because it was bad, but because human convention had quietly ruled it out. Nobody tried it because nobody thought to try it. That's a subtle but genuinely important distinction. The AI had no aesthetic preferences, no intuitions built up over years of study, no idea what looks right. It just worked the problem, and in doing so, found a path that human convention had invisibly closed off. Now, this isn't the first time a computer has helped with mathematics. Computers have been doing calculations for mathematicians for decades. Running simulations. Checking cases. Processing data. But that's not what's happening here. There's a fundamental difference between computing and reasoning. A calculator can tell you that 2 plus 2 equals 4 in a millisecond. That's computation. But a mathematical proof is something else entirely. It's a structured logical argument where every single step must follow necessarily from what came before. You can't approximate a proof. You can't get it mostly right. It either holds up under scrutiny or it doesn't. Building proofs has always been considered irreducibly human. It requires judgment, intuition, the ability to decide which approach is worth pursuing before you know if it'll work. What's changed is that large language model, the technology behind ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, absorbed an enormous amount of mathematical text during training. Papers, textbooks, lecture notes, problem sets. And somewhere in processing all of that, they picked up not just facts but patterns of mathematical reasoning. The moves that mathematicians make. The structures that recur across different kinds of problems. The result is a system that can engage with abstract mathematical ideas in ways that look, and sometimes genuinely are, like reasoning. Sebastian Bubeck is a mathematician at OpenAI, and he's been watching this closely. His take? It is incredible. A year ago, people thought maybe there would be some fundamental obstruction, that these models could never go beyond their training data. That assumed ceiling has been knocked down. And the pace at which it happened is itself part of the story. We're not talking about a gradual, decades-long progression. We're talking about capabilities that researchers thought were years away arriving in months. Tang Luong leads the superhuman reasoning team at Google DeepMind. And he made a prediction that would have seemed absurd not long ago. He said, and I want to make sure you catch this, that he hopes by 2030, AI and mathematicians could jointly win a Fields Medal. The Fields Medal. Mathematics' most prestigious prize. Awarded every 4 years for work that doesn't just solve existing problems, but reshapes entire areas of the field. The Nobel Prize of Mathematics. Is that realistic? We'll come back to that. But the fact that a serious researcher at one of the world's leading AI labs is saying it out loud tells you something about where we are. Before we go further, it's worth being clear about what these AI systems are actually doing, because there's a lot of confusion here, and the details matter. Large language models don't reason the way you or I do. They don't start from axioms and build up an argument step by step. They generate responses by identifying statistical patterns in their training data and producing outputs that are consistent with those patterns. When a mathematician constructs a proof, they're actively thinking, testing hypotheses, noticing when something doesn't work, adjusting their approach. When an LLM generates a proof, it's doing something much harder to describe. It produces text that looks like a proof because it's statistically similar to proofs it's encountered before. Most of the time, when this works, it works because the problem is tractable using techniques the model has already absorbed. The AI is making a sophisticated kind of connection, but one grounded in existing knowledge. Occasionally, as with the Erdos result, something more interesting seems to happen. The model makes a connection that isn't directly available in its training data. Whether that constitutes genuine creativity is a philosophical question nobody has answered yet. Daniel Litt, a mathematician at the University of Toronto, is one of the more skeptical voices in this conversation. He's critical of the hype. He's been unimpressed by most AI mathematical results. But even he called the Erdos number 1196 result reasonably interesting. And he added something that stuck with me. He said he's actually puzzled that AI systems haven't made bigger discoveries already. Their recall of existing mathematics is essentially superhuman. Their reasoning capabilities are strong. They don't get tired. They don't get discouraged. Part of the mystery, he said, is we don't know what makes a human mathematician good at math. That's the question underneath all of this. And nobody has a clear answer. One thing that is clear, current AI systems have a hard ceiling when it comes to proof length. Right now, most models max out at around 3 to 4 pages. That's actually enough for a meaningful range of results. But it's nowhere near the scale of the major proofs that define careers in pure mathematics. Andrew Wiles's proof of Fermat's last theorem ran over 100 pages. That level of sustained, architecturally complex reasoning is still far out of reach. For now. Here's something that doesn't get enough attention in the coverage of AI and mathematics, the mess it's already creating. Lauren Williams is a mathematician at Harvard, and she uses a term that started spreading through the research community, AI slop. It describes AI-generated content that looks like quality research, professionally worded, structurally coherent, mathematically plausible, but that hasn't been properly verified and may contain serious errors. You can find several editors at math journals who can tell you horror stories, she says. Think about why this is particularly dangerous in mathematics. In most fields, an experienced reviewer can quickly assess whether a claim sounds credible. In mathematics, every logical step has to hold up. A proof that reads like valid mathematics isn't necessarily valid mathematics. The errors, when they exist, often hide in small transitions, steps where the argument jumps slightly further than the stated premises actually allow. And catching those requires careful, time-consuming review. The problem isn't just that bad proofs are being submitted. It's the scale. An AI system can generate dozens of plausible-looking manuscripts in the time it takes a human expert to carefully review a single one. Journal editors are already stretched thin. Referees, who review papers as an unpaid professional service, are reporting increased volumes and declining average quality. Most people don't realize that peer review in mathematics is already in a fragile state. AI-generated submissions are making that worse. So what do you do about it? How do you verify mathematical work at scale, especially when some of it is being generated by machines? This is where something called lean comes in. And if you haven't heard of it, pay attention, because it might be the most important development in this story that most people have missed. Lean is an open-source programming language built specifically for mathematics. It allows mathematical arguments to be written in a highly precise, machine-readable format, and then verified by software. Automatically. Definitively. Think of it this way. A proof written in natural language, the kind you'd read in a journal, allows for a certain amount of ambiguity, implicit assumptions, steps that clearly follow. Expert readers can evaluate whether those steps are legitimate, but it's a human judgment call. A proof written in Lean has no room for ambiguity. Every step must be explicitly justified. Every definition must be formally stated. If there's an error anywhere, the software flags it. If Lean accepts the proof is correct, full stop. No reviewer required. The appeal for AI-generated mathematics is obvious. If an AI produces a proof that can be translated into Lean, you can know with certainty whether it's valid. The Erdos number 1196 solution was one of the rare results that could be formalized this way. Kevin Barreto, Price's collaborator at Cambridge, did exactly that using software from a California startup called Math Incorporated. That same company recently formalized the field's medal-winning work of mathematician Marina Vyazovska, the first time a result at that level had ever been turned into Lean-verified code. Google DeepMind has a system called AlphaProof that goes even further. It generates proofs directly in Lean, rather than writing in natural language and translating afterward. But here's the catch, and it's a significant one. Only a fraction of active mathematics can currently be expressed in Lean. Building out the necessary library of formalized definitions and theorems is slow, painstaking work. Luong puts it plainly. There's only a handful of problems you can formalize, and for the rest, you need natural language. Until formal verification can reach further into the mathematical landscape, it's a powerful but partial solution. The community of volunteers expanding Lean is doing some of the most important behind-the-scenes work in this entire story, and almost nobody outside of mathematics has heard of them. Now for the question that's probably been in the back of your mind since the beginning. Can AI ever surpass human mathematicians? The honest answer is, we don't know. But we can say what the people closest to this work actually think. The optimists, and there are serious ones, point to trajectory. Capabilities that didn't exist 2 years ago exist now. The systems are getting better at proof generation, better at catching their own errors, better at making cross-disciplinary connections. If that rate of improvement continues, and there's no reason right now to assume it won't, the question of AI surpassing human mathematicians may not be whether, but when. The skeptics make a different argument. They're not dismissing AI's capabilities. They're questioning whether the specific things that make human mathematicians great can be replicated. What does a great mathematician actually do? They decide which problems are worth studying. That's not a calculation, it's a judgment call, shaped by mathematical taste, intuition about where a field is heading, and a sense of what would be significant if it turned out to be true. They make connections across wildly different areas of mathematics that nobody thought to connect. They bring a kind of stubborn curiosity to problems that can sustain years of work without guarantee of success. Mark Selka, a mathematician at OpenAI, puts it simply, what problems to study is more a judgment call. For a while, it will be humans doing it. The most likely near-term future isn't AI replacing mathematicians. It's something more like a new kind of collaboration. The AI handles the exploratory, pattern-finding, draft-proof work. The human provides direction, evaluates what's interesting, and makes sure the results actually make sense. Some researchers argue this isn't just a temporary arrangement. Jeremy Avogad at Carnegie Mellon makes the philosophical point clearly. Ultimately, the goal of mathematics is to understand mathematical phenomena. For that, we need to be in the loop. We don't want AI just outputting stuff and saying, yes, the theorem is true. That's not a defensive claim. It's a statement about what mathematics is for. Let's zoom out and think about where this is heading. In the near term, the improvements are fairly predictable. Longer proofs. Better verification. Higher accuracy. The 3 to 4 page ceiling will be pushed to 10 pages, then further. Each jump opens up a new tier of problems that AI can meaningfully engage with. Within 5 years, AI-assisted mathematics will likely be as standard in research as literature search software is today. Something researchers simply use, not something they debate whether to use. The first proof benchmark, run by Williams and her colleagues, is specifically designed to make these tools accessible to the whole community, not just labs with cutting-edge hardware. The applications extend far beyond academic research. Cryptography depends on advanced mathematics. and improvements in AI reasoning will eventually affect how we think about the security of encryption systems, physics, engineering, optimization problems that affect logistics, finance, energy systems. The ripple effects of faster mathematical progress are enormous. And then there are the harder questions, the ones that don't have clean answers yet. What happens if AI produces proofs that are machine verified but humanly incomprehensible? Proofs that are technically correct but that no mathematician can follow as an argument? Do those count? Are they useful? There are already computer-assisted proofs of that kind in existence, including the original proof of the four-color theorem, and the community has never fully resolved how to think about them. Javier Gomez Serrano, a mathematician at Brown University, said something that I think captures the mood of the field better than any statistic could. "I now don't even dare to think what the future will be in 5 years," he said. "Things are moving so quickly, at this point anything can happen." So where does that leave us? Mathematics has always been the discipline where humans insist on certainty. Not evidence. Not probability. Proof. The kind of truth that doesn't bend under new data or new circumstances. AI is now entering that space, and the mathematicians closest to it are responding with a mixture of genuine excitement, measured caution, and deep philosophical seriousness. The story of Liam Price and ChatGPT cracking a 60-year-old problem is remarkable. But what makes it genuinely important isn't just the result. It's what it represents, a signal that the boundary between human mathematical thought and machine-generated reasoning is moving faster than anyone expected, in directions that experts are still working to understand. The goal isn't to hand mathematics over to machines. It's to build a partnership, one where AI expands what's possible and humans ensure that what's possible is also meaningful. As one researcher put it, we need to stay in the loop, not because we're threatened, but because understanding is the whole point. If this video made you think differently about AI, or about mathematics, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. And if you want to keep following stories like this one, where science, technology, and the future are colliding in ways that matter, subscribe. We cover this kind of thing regularly, and there's a lot more coming. Drop a comment below. Do you think AI will eventually win a Fields Medal? And if it does, should that count? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.